So one of the statistics that surprised me in Siobhan's presentation was it disrupted one of my stereotypes. But it's a stereotype I come across, rather I don't see it followed through, say, in the counselling room with couples, but it's still a stereotype that's out there, which is that women do feelings and men don't. Would you agree that's a stereotype? To some degree? No? Yeah. But women are more at home with their feelings and more willing to express them, and that men generally don't. So I would have thought, I was expecting that possibly it would show 90% men and 10%, 20%, 30% women in terms of inability to express feelings. But it was very different, it was almost equal. So normally we do a couple of things with our feelings. We either suppress them or we express them. And we suppress them because when I notice I get a sense even talking about feelings, people get uncomfortable. Would you agree?
Yeah. Even
the idea of talking about feelings, and I've brought the Sedona man in a group recently, and most of the people were uncomfortable with the idea that they would have to connect in any way with their feelings. But one of the beauties of the Sedona method is you don't actually need to say anything out loud, you just need to go inwards and take the risk of feeling. So what we normally do is we either say suppress it or we express the feelings. So if one of the ways we suppress them is that we put on the TV and distract ourselves with television. We take a sup of alcohol, the wine on a Friday night. We're talking about stress management, so that's a very common way for us to stress management. The cigarette, the coffee, the wine on Friday night. There's lots of different ways that we escape from our feelings, suppress them. So, as Gary showed, physical activity is going to shift the feelings, but also some of us can use physical activity at the gym to suppress feelings by working them through enough so we don't actually have to feel them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So the Sedona method is, you could describe it as a dynamic mindfulness. So a mindfulness that's happening in activity, in motion. So you could be doing some Sedona method as I'm talking. You could do Sedona method maybe as you're queuing for the coffee. Different things, probably not a good idea to do it in the car because it requires an inner focus, and when you're driving the car, you want an outer focus and see what's happening, who's coming. So there were some other things I was going to say about it, but no, I'll leave it. I'll not use the book. So, if you think about feelings and about being present to them, if we pay attention to the feeling, we can begin to get to know it a little bit, pay attention to the width of it, the height of it, the depth of it. But usually we have a fear of our feelings, and we judge some as good and some as bad. So for example, we judge happiness as good, that's a good feeling. We judge sadness, fear, anger, numbness, maybe as bad feelings. And often we identify very fully with our feelings. We say things like, I'm afraid, I am afraid, I am angry, I am sad. So it's not like the feeling has consumed us. We also talk about being, reading a novel, our hero was gripped by fear. So as though the fear is gripping us, holding on to us. So another way to look at emotion, and again it links with Gary's case, emotion, energy and motion. So feelings want to move, that's their nature. They want to move, but we want to control them. So and that's one of the reasons we feel anxiety. And some of you who work with people in need may have noticed people in the past, you see a red colour rising, and it gets to here, and the rest is white. And you can almost see the line where the emotion is coming up, but the suppression is so excellent that it just doesn't get any further. And sometimes suppression becomes so habitual and familiar that it becomes what's called repression. So in other words, it's an unconscious suppression that we're not even aware we're doing. So the Sedona method is about developing the confidence that our feelings don't need to overwhelm us. And even that overwhelmment in itself can be focused on and released. So as I say, laughter, tears, they're natural ways that we release feelings. You think of a child that falls and hurts themselves, bursts into tears, has a good hard cry, not a cuddle from mommy or daddy, hopefully, and gets up and gets on with things. Or you look at us, if we go to a good comedian and we have a good laugh and come out feeling refreshed, like really, really good. So those are natural ways of releasing. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an exercise with you. We'll do it for time, okay? Lots of time.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes is better. So one of the ways of using the Sedona method is to work through a series of questions that you're asking yourself. So, is everybody along down what I'm about to go with? Yeah? So just tune into the last feeling that you had, that was an enemy uncomfortable. If you had a feeling this morning of, oh, I can't believe I'm going to this conference. Or if you had a feeling of excitement about going to the conference, but you dreaded going out in the heat and having to be in the car, and you knew the car would be roasting hot as soon as you get into it, how soon would the air conditioning kick in or whatever, or the draft from the window. Or it could be a worry about something that you're leaving behind today. It could be a worry about family, it could be somebody ill, it could be a worry about your own health. It could be the memory of getting angry with a colleague or with a child. Whatever it might be, that it's not hard to connect with a feeling that is an enemy uncomfortable. So just remember that feeling there as best you can. And we're going to go through a series of questions. And each question that I ask, just notice internally, allow yourself completely free to just say yes to the question or to say no. And either way, it will allow a release. So no is often the most honest answer. And that allows the feeling to know that it's been met, that it's been recognised, that it's been allowed in some way. So just, again, notice the feeling internally. So the first question is, could you allow the feeling to be here? And that's just as best you can. Could you allow the feeling to be here as much as it is? Or could you allow the memory of the feeling to be here? And just notice if it's a bit uncomfortable. And notice if you can tolerate that discomfort, just for now, as best you can. And there's no right or wrong in this, you can't actually get it wrong. So could you allow the feeling and just notice if you're saying yes or no. And see, can you answer from down here, below the red white line, just from down here, the heart or the solar plexus of the tummy. So if you could allow it to be here, if that was possible for you, could you also then let it go? And let it go means imagining doing something like this in your gut. Just sort of a loosening of the fists, the internal clenching that we do. Just notice, in the same way as I can open my hands, my guts can open as well and release the tension a little bit. But again, feel free to say no. But if you could release that, if you could let it go, would you let it go? Just notice, would you let it go? And the final question is when? When would be a good time to let it go? And that's an invitation to say right now. So I'm not going to run through the questions another time, maybe 2 times. And again, just see if you tune into the feeling. It may be exactly the same as it was, or maybe slightly different. Another way of connecting with the feeling is there anything that you're really resisting these days, including the resistance to this exercise? Not wanting to do it. And just see, could you notice a resistance or any other feeling like that? And if you notice it, could you allow it to be here? Could you allow a relaxation to happen? And then could you let it go? Yes or no? And if you could do that, would you let it go? And then when is a good time to let go? And even if you say later to that, you'll notice that even that allows a release, because there's a humour in that. I won't let go right now, I'll let go later. So again, just check the feeling, check the body for body sensations, maybe a little bit of discomfort at the very idea of this exercise. So notice what that discomfort is, and could you allow that discomfort to be here? just as best you can, just for now. And then could you let it go? Could you open inside a little, relax a little, and just set it free, let it unravel, melt, dissolve, disappear? And if you could do any of that, yes or no, would you? Are you willing to release it, let it go? And where? So just one more time, notice any resistance, notice any saying no to this process, notice any memory of anything uncomfortable. And as best you can, could you give it permission to be here just as much as it is? And as best you can, could you let it soften, melt, unravel, dissolve and disappear? Could you let it go? Just could you, as best you can? And would you let it go? And where? So thank you everybody. I hope you found that interesting. If you look up the words Sedona method, you get lots of details on the website and on YouTube and Facebook, etc. Thank you everybody.